Hello students, welcome to FS Cloud. My name is Shashmita. We have an app by the name Careers Cloud which you can go and download through the Play Store. Once you have downloaded the application, you will easily be able to log in using your Gmail ID. And once you have logged in, you will be redirected to this page where you will be getting this URL. And there will be option for home, all courses, my courses and doubt section in this application. You will be getting multiple PDFs, multiple content on daily basis that will be enhancing your learning. Under Crack Current Affairs, you will be able to see multiple options. First one is Current Affairs English. We upload the day-to-day basis news in the English format. And apart from English PDF, we also provide them in Hindi format. And this banking awareness, we upload a PDF every month. So this PDF will contain the banking news, banking and the finance news of that respective month. And Current Affairs Exam PDF will have two categories. One is that most important news of that particular month will be uploaded in this Current Affairs Exam PDF. And also Exam Perspective PDF will also be uploaded. And next is Special CA. This will contain Union Budget, Economic Survey, and also the most important events that had taken place globally as well as nationally. And next most important is topic wise. So the entire news of that particular month will be segregated into different topics. And in order to recollect whatever you've read, we also provide you with topic wise quizzes. Apart from that, we also provide state current affairs. Now, here if you see, we provide you with the day-to-day PDF, and this we provide you with the weekly PDF. So that particular week news will be compiled into a PDF and in question and answer format in English and will be uploaded here. And to enhance your learning, you can also, to enhance and strengthen your learning, you can also attend the quiz. Here we provide you with the entire news of that particular week. But here we take the top 60 most important news and we upload it in this PDF in question and answer format. Apart from weekly, we also provide you the monthly ones. This PDF will contain detailed view of that particular month news, and this will have a brief format of the same news. This will be in the form of a question and answer format, and this will have the top 100 question and answer of that particular month. We also provide you with the PIB news on a day-to-day basis, which you can go and read in these particular tabs. Apart from that, we also provide the Union Budget and Economic Survey. You can also attend you can read after reading the PDF. You can also go and attend the quiz. This is available in the Special CA category. We also provide state level current affairs. So this will be very helpful for students who are preparing for state level exams. For example, if you are preparing for Tamil Nadu state level exams, then you can click this tab and you will be able to see all the current affairs or news related to Tamil Nadu. Apart from that, we also provide PDF from the exam perspective. Suppose you are preparing for RBI Assistant Mains, then this tab will contain 5 to 6 months of current affairs, which has high probability of being asked in RBI Assistant Mains. Similarly, for SBI PO, RRB PO, Clerk Mains, all these are being given under this section. And also we provide separate content-wise, topic-wise current affairs like national affairs, government schemes, international affairs, banking and finance, economy and businesses, MOUs and committees and meetings. All these different types of news are segregated in these particular categories. Hello students, welcome to our new initiative. In this initiative, we will be uploading the weekly current affairs on banking and finance section. So this will be uploaded on every Monday. And so on the whole, per month, you will have totally 4 videos related to this topic. And apart from just providing you with the banking and finance news, we also provide you the conceptual explanation so that this will enhance and also strengthen your knowledge about these topics. Today, we will be covering the June 1st week banking and finance news. Moving to the first news. So, India has received maximum FDI from Singapore as per the recent data that is released by the Government of India. So let us look into the details. So as per financial 2023, India had received 46 billion FDI via equity inflows. But in financial 2024, it has decreased by 3.5%, that is to 44 billion. So in financial 23, we had received 46 billion, and in financial 24, it has reduced by 3.5% to 44.42 billion. So this data is released by the Ministry of Commerce and Industry under the Department of Promotion of Industry and Internal Trade. So they released this data. So as per this data, Singapore is the biggest investor, but the amount has decreased by 32%. So if you see, a lot of countries invest in India in FDI, foreign direct investment. As I've told in previous videos, there are two forms of investment, that is FDI and FPI. FDI is for long term and FPI is for short term basis. So we are talking now about the FDI, foreign direct investment. So in that, a lot of countries invest. And in that, the topmost country which has invested a lot of amount in India is Singapore. But compared to previous year, it has invested less, that is 32% less. So this year it has invested around 11.77 billion in financial year 2024, which is 32% lesser than the previous financial year. Now, first place goes to Singapore, and the second is by Mauritius. It has invested around 7.97 billion in financial year 2024, followed by USA 4.99 billion, Netherlands 4.93, Japan 3.17, UAE 2.9 billion, Germany 505 million, and Cayman Islands 342 million. So Singapore has been the largest source of FDI since 2018-19. It's not just this year that it has invested so much amount, but since 2018 it has been providing a lot of FDI to our country. So the highest ever FDI in India was in financial year 2022. The amount was $84 billion. So the total FDI, so in the previous video, the first slide, we saw that it is the equity inflows. Apart from equity inflows, there will be other inflows like even reinvestment. So if the FDI has been invested in India, they will earn profits, right? So from the profits, they'll again invest in India itself. So including all that, the total FDI in India is 71 billion in financial year 2023, and now it has reduced to 70.95 billion in financial year 24. So both the equity inflows has also reduced, and also the total FDI has also decreased this financial year 2024. So FDI decreased in various sectors. So in few sectors the FDI is increased, and in few sectors the FDI is decreased. So we'll see the sectors where there is a decrease in FDI. They are services, computer hardware and software, telecommunication, automobiles, pharma and chemicals. But if you see in construction activities and power sector, the FDI has increased. So if you see from April 2000 to March 2024, Mauritius has contributed 25% of the total FDI to India, and the amount is around 171 billion. So from 2000 to 2024, Mauritius has provided around 171 billion, and that contributes to the 25% of the total FDI. Similarly, Singapore contributes 24%, that is 159.9 billion, US 10%, that is 65.19 billion. So main reasons, so why has this FDI increasing, or why is it remaining good in number, is because the amendments made by the SEBI in the REITs, that is Real Estate Investment Trust, and also the double taxation avoidance agreement that the India signs with various countries. So India, there is a double taxation avoidance between India and Singapore. So what is this purpose? That if in India, if you see, there is a long-term capital gain, that is if you earn more than 1 lakh from long-term funds, then you have to pay a tax. Similarly, if an FDI investment has been made, and from that if they earn profit, then they'll have to pay tax to India, but that has been avoided, exempted. So it has provided such benefits, and that is why a lot of attraction has taken place and a lot of people now invest in India. So the next news is that SEBI has launched Saarthi 2.0 mobile app on personal finance for investors. So let us see what is this app. So this app will include financial calculators. So if you see in a lot of online pages, web pages, you will see like enter your SIP amount, enter the interest rate that you expect, and the number of years you want to invest. So from that it will tell you that okay, by end of this year you will have this much of amount accumulated. So that is called as a financial calculator. So this app has a financial calculator. It also explains the KYC procedure, what is a mutual fund, ETF, all this is there in this app. Apart from that, the investors can buy and also sell shares on the stock exchange via this app. And also it includes the grievance redressal mechanism and online dispute resolution platform in this app. So all these things are available in the Saarthi 2.0 app that is launched by the SEBI. So it also provides, apart from the above features that I have mentioned in the previous slide, it also provides personal financing videos to the investors. So you can download this app from the Google Play Store and also from the iOS App Store. Next news is that SEBI has imposed penalty on Samco Securities. This is nothing but a stockbroker for lapses in customer onboarding process. So the penalty is around 2.5 lakh on Samco Securities Limited. It is a SEBI registered stockbroker. So this is not the first time that a penalty has been posted or has been imposed on Samco Securities. This is the third time in 3 years. It has found in violation of regulation. So SEBI actually had conducted an inspection of documents and records of Samco, and then it had found a lot of violations of the provisions of SEBI Act 1992 and SEBI Regulation 1992. So this period of investigation is from April 1, 2022 and to May 31st, 2023. Next is about an association formation by the online bond platform. You know that even mutual funds, they all have an association, right? Like AMFI. So similarly, the online bond platform provider is a SEBI registered platform which facilitates the buying and selling of bonds. So here you can buy and sell the bonds. Here around this 25 online bond platforms, they have formed an association called as Online Bond Platform Providers Association of India to represent the industry. So who will be the chairperson of this association? Aditi Mittal, who is the co-founder and the director of India Bonds, will be the chairperson, and Vivek Darak will be the vice chairperson. So little details about this OBPP platform. In November 2022, SEBI had introduced a regulatory framework for this platform, and it also had amended the NCS, that is Issue and Listings of Non-Convertible Securities Regulations 2021. So a framework was introduced in November 2022 for this platform. And in November 2023, SEBI restricted the OBPP from offering products other than the listed. So you have two types of products. One is listed and another one is unlisted. Unlisted are if you see in any stocks that will be listed, means they are available on the stock exchange. Similarly, listed, they would have filed all their data with the SEBI. So it is always safe to invest in the listed so that the customer's interest and also the money will be protected. So for that reason, SEBI had restricted the OBPP from offering products other than the listed debt securities. It also offers other products like government securities, T-bills and listed sovereign gold bonds. We have launched a new course called Static Banking Awareness course. Now this course will be helpful for students who are preparing for the banking exams and for the regulatory body exams. And also recently you would have seen Paytm Bank in news frequently. So when an aspirant reads this news, he would have ample number of questions like what is a payment bank, what are the norms for it, and which is the committee that has launched it. So this Static Banking Awareness course lays a foundation to the current banking and finance news. Now you have to download our Careers Cloud to access this course. Once you have logged into our app, you can go and click this all courses icon, and then you'll be redirected to this page. In this, you have to go and click the Static Banking Awareness course, and under the Details tab, you will be able to see a brief about this course. And under the Part tab, it will contain all the contents, all the topics of the contents that are currently available in this course. We are working on this continuously, and this will be completed within 2 months. Under the Free tab, you can go and access one content, that is the origin and development content, for free. You can go and read this content and have an idea about this course. After reading this content, do attend the quiz that is also available under the same tab. Now, our team has allocated ample amount of time and resources to curate this content. We have created this content from various books and from various verified websites. Our content is better than any book that is available in the market. This is because we update this content on a dynamic basis. For example, there are currently 39 DRTs that are available in the country now. In future, if one more DRT is created or added, then it would become 40. So we would update this content on a dynamic basis. But in case of books, you have to wait for the next publication for this updated content. Nowadays, a lot of practical questions have been asked in the banking exams. For example, how many public sector banks are available on the stock exchange? Which is the payment bank that is being listed on the stock exchange? So we try to cover as many practical questions as possible in this course. Apart from this, we also provide you a question bank that will contain around 3000 questions and the previous year questions along with it. We also have a dedicated tab that will release the important RBI notification and the frequent news released by the RBI. You can use this code B15 to avail 15% discount. This is one of the highest discounts that we have offered until now. So do avail this code B15 while you purchase the course. Next news is the RBI annual report. RBI has released the annual report for the financial year 2023 and 24. This is a very important report. Let us look into the highlights of this report. So if you see, Reserve Bank of India publishes this report and releases and presents it through the central government of India under the section 53 clause 2. So remember this section, it is section 53 clause 2 of the Reserve Bank of India, which tells RBI to submit this report to the government of India. Under this report, there are mainly two parts, part 1 and part 2. Part 1 will be about the review and prospects. So it will assess the previous year, like how the country has performed the previous year, how was the financial situation for the previous year. That will be assessed. And the second point is that it will prospects for 2024-25. That how will India grow project in the next upcoming financial year, that is 2024-25. So what will be the inflation, what will be the GDP growth, and what will be the physical deficit. All this will be discussed would be discussed in this prospects for 2024-25, and also the economic situation. So if you see the price situation, the money and credit, all this situation like in the global economy as well as the Indian economy, all this will be discussed in this part 1. Next is the part 2. The part 2 will talk about the working and operation of the Reserve Bank of India. So this will include the monetary operation, like how much amount of money is printed, circulated, all this will be there, and also the financial inclusion part, like what all steps has RBI done for financial inclusion. So and also the credit part, like how much is the credit penetration in India right now. So what RBI has done for the increasing the priority sector lending, all this and all will be discussed in the part 2. So these are the two parts under the annual report. So RBI, it has forecasted the real GDP at 7% for the fiscal year 2024-25. So this is the third consecutive year where India will grow above 7%. So this is the third. So past 3 years, India, including this year, last 2 years, India has been growing at the rate of 7% per annum. And the gross fixed capital formation has increased to 10.2% from 6.6%, which is a very good number, because capital is very much required for a growing economy. So this capital is how much money the country invests in the capital formation. So when you increase the capital formation, employment will increase, job opportunities will increase. So and it will also attract investments from the abroad. So this is a very good number. The gross capital formation, it has increased to 10.2% from 6.6%. The next one is that the headline inflation, it has softened to 5.4% from 6.7% the previous year. So the inflation is also coming down. That is, it has come down to 5.4 from 6.7, which is a very good job done by the RBI. Now, coming to the income part, we know that the RBI has transferred a surplus of 2,10,873 crore to the government of India. So previous surplus was, previous year it has transferred a surplus of 87,416 crore, and now it has transferred a surplus of 2,10,873 crore. So if you see, it is a very huge, almost more than double has been transferred by the RBI to the government of India. But how much how the RBI is able to transfer this much amount? If you see the difference between the income, it is only around 40,000 crores. So it is 2,35,000 crore the previous year, and now the income is 2,75,000 crore. But the expenditure part has reduced tremendously. So if you see, the income part has raised by 17%, but the expenditure part has decreased by 56%. And due to this, there has been a lot of profit for the RBI, and so a lot of surplus has been transferred to the government of India. So, if you see, the income of RBI in 2023-24 is 2,75,572 crore, but the expenditure is just 64,694 from 1,48,000 the previous year. And so, the RBI was able to transfer a surplus of 2,10,873.99, that is 2,10,874 crore to the government of India this year. Next, the balance sheet of RBI has also grown. It has grown about 11% compared to the previous year. So if you see, the previous year the balance sheet was just 63 lakh crore, and from that it has grown to 70 lakh crore, which is almost 11% increment, which is very good number. Next is that around 27,031 crore of sovereign gold bond has been purchased in financial year 2024. So if you see, the sovereign gold bond concept was introduced in 2015 in order to arrest the high import of gold into India. So in this, the gold, there will be bond issued in the form of, so when each bond will indicate 1 gram of gold. So if a person wants to buy a bond, then he can buy it only, this will be termed in terms of gold. So it will have value, but backing will be a gold value, it will only be backed by this bond. So if you see, a person can buy minimum 1 gram of gold, an individual person, and maximum 4 kg of gold. This will include individual and HUF. And if you see any trust, they can buy up to 20 kg of gold. And also, apart from that, this, if you buy it in 2015, only after 8 years, you can redeem this. But you will get a 2.5% or interest on a semi-annual basis. So these are the features of sovereign gold bond. So if you see, the around 27,000 crore bonds have been purchased during this financial year. This 27,000 crore, if you see it in terms of gold, then it is 44.34 tons of gold during 23-24 compared to just 12 tons. So it is almost 3.8 times of the previous year purchase. So this year it is 44 tons of gold and previous year it was just 12.26 tons of gold. Now, since the inception of sovereign gold bond scheme in November 2015, around 72,274 has been raised via these bonds in 67 tranches. So, if you see, 72,274 crore has been raised via this SGB purchase. Next, the monetary penalties. You know that one of the revenue model of RBI is penalties. So, this year, the penalty imposed by RBI has doubled. Previously, it was just 40 crores in financial 23, but now it has doubled to 86.11 crore. So, the central bank has imposed monetary penalties on 281 regulated entities compared to 211 regulated entities in financial year 23. So, the number of regulated entities has also increased and the amount has also doubled from 40 crore to 86 crore in financial year 24. Next is counterfeit note. These are nothing but fake notes. So if you see, the counterfeit notes compared to previous year, the counterfeit notes has increased. Overall, it has increased from 2,25,000 pieces in 2023 financial year to 2,22,000 pieces in financial year 24. So this is the decrease in number of pieces, but the number of pieces detected at RBI has increased. If you see previous year, in RBI only 10,000 pieces were detected, but this year, this financial year, that is 2024 financial year, around 17,613 has been detected. So there has been a counterfeit currency detection at RBI. It has increased from 10,000 to 17,000, but in other banks it has decreased, and so the overall has been decreased from 2,25,000 to 2,22,000 pieces. Now, if you see the maximum number of denomination in counterfeit notes detected, it is in 2000 rupees note, that is from, the amount has increased a lot in 2000 rupees note. So if you see in 2022-23, the counterfeit detected were 9,800 pieces, but in 24 it is 26,000 pieces. So maximum, if you see, it has been for 100 rupee note, it is 66,000 pieces. So the maximum detected is for 100 rupee note, that is 66,000 pieces, and the value for 2000 it has increased from 9,800 to 26,000 pieces. The next is about the frauds detected. If you see, a total of 36,075 cases of bank frauds has been reported in financial year 24. So let us look into this table. If you see 2023 financial year, the number of cases were only 13,564. But now it has been increased to 36,000. So it is almost 2.8 times increase has happened. So from 13,000 cases detected in 2023, now the number of cases detected is 36,000. But if you see the amount involved, it has decreased. It has decreased almost half. So the amount involved in 2023 was 26,000 crores, but now the amount involved is just 13,930. So though the number of cases have increased, the amount involved has decreased almost half. And the main reason for the main frauds have taken place, mostly the frauds have taken place via the digital mode. So mostly the major fraud cases have happened via the digital mode. So to address this issue, the RBI will set up a cyber range in financial year 25 to augment the cyber incident response capability of the bank. So increase the capacity of the cyber incident response of the banks. It will introduce a cyber range in financial year 25. Next is that a framework has been set up for the SRO, that is self-regulatory body, released by the RBI for the Indian FinTech. So if you see SRO FT. So for the FinTech, an SRO framework has been finally released by the RBI. Now, if you see, this is the regulator. Here you have an SRO and here are the regulated entities. So regulator will generally frame rules and regulation and tell the regulated entity follow it. But now if you see, there are a lot of regulated entities and also the capacity, the value or the volume of the regulated entities have also increased. That is, the customer base of the regulated entities has also increased tremendously. So it's becoming quite difficult for the regulator to manage all these regulated entities. So this SRO will help the regulator in managing the regulated entities. Thus, they will frame, the regulator SRO will frame a code of conduct that will be bought. The code of conduct will be framed from the rules and regulation framed by the regulator. So it will ensure that the RE follows this code of conduct. So it will help the regulated entities to follow the rules and regulations framed by the regulator in India. So this is the main purpose of an SRO. So what does the framework say? So it has said that the minimum net worth of the SRO FT should be 2 crore. And it should be a not-for-profit company and the shareholding shall not exceed 10% or more of the paid-up share capital. So these are included in the final framework for the SRO-FT. Now, the minimum support price has been the minimum support price ensure a minimum return of 50% over the cost of production. So if you see, if the cost of production was 10 rupees, then the minimum support price given by the government has ensured that it is at least 15 rupees. So there is at least 50% increase over the cost of production. So the minimum support price, both Kharif crops and Rabi crops, it is a minimum return of 50% over the cost of production. But if you see the production of Kharif and Rabi crops, it has decreased by about 1.3% compared to the previous year. Next, so RBI is trying to facilitate opening rupee accounts outside India. So it plans to allow the persons resident outside India to open rupee accounts as part of this 2024-25 agenda. So main reason for allowing the persons outside India to open rupee account is to globalize the domestic currency, increase the recognition of the domestic currency, not just in India, but it has to be recognized even outside India. So for that reason, RBI is planning to allow person resident outside India to open rupee account. So this will allow the Indian banks to lend in rupees to the person resident outside India. Next is that RBI and NPCI will expand UPI to 20 countries by financial year 29. So we've seen in news that RBI has been tying up with a lot of countries to open, to collaborate UPI with them. So similarly, RBI now has an aim to achieve expand UPI to 20 countries by financial year 29. So if you see in France and Nepal, already the UPI payment mode is existing. So here in France and UPI, you can pay the merchant via the QR code. Similarly, UPI connectivity in India and Sri Lanka was launched in February 2024, where you can do a QR based payment in Sri Lanka, and also India's UPI and UAE's instant payment platform called Ani were linked. So if you see India's UPI and the UAE's UPI called Ani were linked. Next is about the 500 rupee note. If you see, 500 rupee note has become the 86.5% of the currency in circulation by value. So it is the maximum in case of value. So around 86.5% of currency circulation is 500 rupee note in value. So the value and the volume of the banknote in circulation, it has increased by 3.9%. So the value has increased by 3.9% and the volume of notes that are circulating in 2023-24, it has increased by 7.2. So it is almost double. So 3.9% by value and 7.8% by volume. So it is double of this. Now the value of total currency in circulation as of March 2024 stood at 34.8 trillion. So previously it was in 2020 it was just 24.21 trillion, and as of 31st March 2024, the value stands at 34.8 trillion, which is almost 10 trillion more than that existed in 2020. And also RBI has planned to start a project called Greenfield Next Generation Data Center. So this is to address the capacity expansion. So if you see, a lot of regulated entities are increasing, so customer base is increasing, so a lot of data has to be processed. The volume of data has also been increasing. To address this issue, a Greenfield Data Center will be established or built, and this will be to meet the increasing IT landscape needs. The next news is RBI moves 100 tons of gold from UK to its vault in India. You see, in 1991, when the foreign exchange crisis happened, that was the first time this movement of gold had taken place. So during that crisis, India was in need of forex money. So for that purpose, RBI had pledged this gold to Bank of England, and in return it had received around $405 billion dollars from the Bank of England, and this money was returned very soon to the Bank of England. But in spite of returning it, RBI did not prefer to get back the gold from the Bank of England due to freight cost, insurance cost, also logistics cost. So I thought it would be better to safely hold it in the Bank of England. So that is how gold was stored in another country. So apart from Bank of England, Bank of International Settlement, our RBI holds gold even in another bank, that is Bank of International Settlement. So the RBI holds gold in Bank of International Settlement and Bank of England, and currently it has moved 100 tons of gold from UK due to geopolitical tensions because of lot of wars happening between Russia, Ukraine, and also Israel, Palestine. So since the geopolitical tensions have been increasing day by day, it has decided to bring back the 100 tons of gold from the UK. RBI has moved 100 metric tons or 1 lakh kilo of gold stored in the UK to domestic vaults in financial year 2024. This was the first time since 1991 that India has moved such a heavy scale of gold. So if you see, currently RBI holds around 822 metric ton of gold. It is an increase of around 27 metric ton. And out of this 82 metric ton, 413 tons, they are stored overseas as of March 2024, that is Bank of England and Bank of International Settlement. Now, more than half of the RBI's gold holding are kept in safe custody with the Bank of International Settlement and Bank of England, as we have discussed in the previous slide. So according to the World Gold Council, RBI has bought around 19 tons of gold in the first quarter, which is higher than the 16 tons that it had brought in the first quarter of 2023. So in this quarter it had bought 19 tons, and previous year's first quarter it had bought 16 tons as per the World Gold Council. Next news is that RBI imposes monetary penalty on SBM Bank. So we know that RBI, this is one of its revenue for RBI. So we saw it recently that the around 86 crores has been earned by RBI by imposing fines. So similarly, RBI has imposed a monetary penalty of 88 lakh on SBM Bank, which is a subsidiary of State Bank of Mauritius, for non-compliance. So it has also directed to stop undertaking liberalized remittance scheme transaction. So under this liberalized remittance scheme, people from India, they can send up to $250,000 to other countries without approval from RBI. Previously, how it was that if you want to send money abroad, then you have to get prior approval from RBI. But since this scheme was introduced, up to 250,000 rupees can be sent by the resident of Indian to other countries without approval of RBI. And if you want to send more money, that is more than $250,000, then you need approval from RBI. So now RBI has stated that that the bank should stop undertaking this LRS scheme transactions. So, and it has also imposed a penalty of 88 lakh rupees on this bank. The MD and CEO of this bank is Ashish Vijayakar. It is headquartered in Mumbai. Next news is that SEBI sets up an ad hoc committee to review ownership eco-structure of Clearing Corporation. So Clearing Corporation is one of the market infrastructure institutions. In short, MII. Just like stockbrokers, stock exchanges. Similarly, Clearing Corporation is one among them. So the ad hoc committee will be chaired by the Usha Thorat, former deputy governor of the RBI. So he was the deputy governor during this period, that is 2005 to 2010, and he will be heading this committee. Previously, there was a report by the committee led by R. Gandhi. It had stated that the market infrastructure institutions, the ownership should be diverse and widely owned. But if you see, most of the Clearing Corporation, they are 100% owned by a single exchange. But as per the report given by R. Gandhi, it has stated that these ownership should be diverse and widely owned for the security purposes. And it is also stated that with the CCs being very sensitive and high risk bearing, you know the function of CC. It ensures that the entire transaction takes place. That is, the buyer of the share should get the shares in his or her name, and the seller of the share should get the money. Only then the transaction is complete. So the Clearing Corporation ensures this transaction is complete. That is, the buyer gets the shares, the seller gets the money. This is the work of the Clearing Corporation. So this is quite sensitive and high risk bearing. So it is not safe if it is 100% owned by one single entity, but it should be diversified. So SEBI proposed that at least 51% of the recognized CC's paid up capital should be held by one or more stock exchanges, and no person resident in India or outside India can hold more than 5% of the paid up equity share. So at least a recognized stock exchange should hold at least 51%, and any person outside India cannot hold more than 5% of the paid up equity share. And also some other categories, like if you see depository, banking company and foreign stock exchanges, they can hold up to 15% of the paid up equity share. This was proposed by SEBI. Now, what will this ad hoc committee do? This ad hoc committee will examine the list of eligible investors. Since most of the clearing corporations are owned by one single stock exchange, so you have to diversify them. For that, you need to find the eligible investors to whom this can be diversified. So for that, it will examine the list of eligible investors who are permitted to take the shareholding in a clearing corporation. It will also examine the need to change the shareholding limit of different entities. So if you see here, around 51% by stock exchange, and around this non-resident can hold up only 5%, and here about 50%. So if there is any need for change in its limits, if this has to be reduced to 3% or increased to 10%, so all this will be decided and examined in this committee. It will also suggest ideas for attaining the ideal financial structure so that there is financial independence and stability. The next news is that Adani One and ICICI Bank has jointly launched two variants of co-branded credit cards. So let us see what are these two. So this is done in collaboration with the card network Visa, and the two credit cards are Adani One ICICI Bank Signature Credit Card, and another one is Adani One ICICI Bank Platinum Credit Card. So if you use this signature credit card, up to 7% Adani reward points will be on spending with Adani Group ecosystem. Suppose if you are using this credit card to make a purchase in Adani airports or Adani electricity bills or train bookings, if you use it in any of the Adani Group ecosystem, then you will have a reward points up to 7%, and if you use it elsewhere, then it is up to 2%. Similarly, in case of Platinum credit card, it is 3% if it is used in the Adani Group ecosystem, and if it is elsewhere, then it is 1.5%. So about ICICI Bank, the MD and CEO is Sandeep Bakshi. It is headquartered in Mumbai and it was founded in 1994. RBI has imposed immediate restrictions on Edelweiss Group's EARCL and ECL Finance. So if you see, RBI has found that Edelweiss entities were entered into a series of structured transaction of evergreening stressed exposure of ECL through the platform of EARCL and connected alternate investment fund. Now, what is this news all about? And what is evergreening? Says there is a bank A. It has given loan to a customer C. But unfortunately, this customer is not able to repay the money that it has borrowed. And bank A is worrying that what if my NPA increases because this customer C is not able to return the money. And it doesn't want to increase the NPA because NPA is one of the parameter for the RBI to look, and also to gain the confidence of the customers, of the investors, the NPA should be maintained in a very good level. So it is worried that the NPA should not increase. So what this bank does, that it goes and tells alternate investment fund. Just like mutual funds, banks, they invest in alternate investment fund as an investment way. So it will tell this bank, alternate investment fund, I will give you this money. You go and give it to or invest it in this customer C. And in turn, alternate investment fund will get the money from bank A and it will invest in customer C. Now customer C will have the money. So what the customer C will do, that it will go and repay the loan that it was not able to repay. Now what happens is that the loan is repaid and NPA does not occur. But this is not a right way. This is an unethical way. And this process is called as evergreening of loan, and this was found by RBI in this ECL. So RBI, apart from that, RBI has also observed incorrect valuation of security receipts in both in ECL and EARCL. So security receipts are nothing but they are issued to the buyers, and from this money the ARC buys the bad loans from the banks. So it has found that there was an incorrect valuation of the security receipts. So various other discrepancies that were found were non-compliance with loan to value for lending against shares. So if you see, if there is a share value of 100 rupees, it has been pledged, then there is a limit that it can give only up to 75 rupees or 80 rupees. But what they have done is they have exceeded it and they have given up to 95 rupees, which is very risky. So loan to value, they haven't followed the loan to value norms, and also incorrect reporting to the Central Repository for Information on Large Credit System and non-adherence to the Know Your Customer guidelines. So these were the various discrepancies found in this ECL, and that is why RBI has had to take restrictions on this Edelweiss groups. So the Edelweiss Group chairman is Rashesh Shah. It was headquartered in Mumbai, Maharashtra. It is headquartered in Mumbai, Maharashtra. Capital Small Finance Bank announces bank assurance with ICICI Lombard General Insurance. So this partnership will allow Capital Small Finance Bank to sell the products of the ICICI Lombard Comprehensive. So this will be a win-win situation. So ICICI can sell more products, and also Capital Small Finance Bank will have access to insurance products of the ICICI Lombard. So if you see, the Capital Small Finance Bank MD and CEO is Sarvajit Singh. It is headquartered in Jalandhar, Punjab. And about ICICI Lombard General Insurance, the MD and CEO is Sanjeev Mantri, and it is headquartered in Mumbai, Maharashtra. The next news is that Federal Bank announces bank assurance partnership with Tata AIA Life Insurance. Just like previous slide, we saw Capital Small Finance Bank has told that it has partnered with the ICICI Lombard. Similarly, Federal Bank has partnered with Tata Life. So Federal Bank will be able to sell the products of the Tata AIA to its customers. So here the focus will be on technology enabled and customer centric business modeling, and this will add to the synergies of the partnership. RBI cancels the 10-year green bond auction for the first time due to lack of greenium. So for the first time, RBI has cancelled the planned auction of a 10-year green bonds as traders refused to pay the greenium. So if you see, RBI had kept an interest rate in mind, but the interest rate expected by the traders, by the investors were more, and due to this difference, this auction was cancelled. So the government had actually planned to raise green bonds worth rupees 12,000 crore in the first half of the current financial year. The bids that were ranged from the investors were ranged between 7% and 7.06%, and this was quite high as per RBI expectation. So due to this reason, RBI couldn't meet the yield expectation from the investors, and so this RBI green bond auction was cancelled. The fund raised from this, so what is this green bond? Where will the money from the green bond be invested? So if you see the fund raised from the sale of green bonds, they are intended to invest in public sector projects that aims to reduce the economy's carbon footprint. So for this purpose, the money will be used. The next news is about the GDP projection by Moody's rating. So Moody's rating has projected India's GDP to grow by 6.8% in 2024 and 6.5% in 2025. So as per the Global Macro Outlook 2024-25, it has projected the India's GDP to grow by 6.8% and 6.5% in 2025. The main reason for this is that the significant capital expenditure. So if you see in financial year 2024, the government has set in the budget about 10 lakh crore for the capex, that is capital expenditure, and this financial year 25 interim budget, the finance minister had said that it has allocated 11.11 lakh crore for capex. So due to this increase in capital expenditure, there is a positive outlook, and hence this GDP prediction has been increased. And also the private investment is also expected to increase because of the strong PLI schemes. So this PLI schemes will drive the investment in targeted manufacturing industries. So the president and CEO of Moody's Ratings will be Robert Fauber, and it is headquartered in New York. The next news, that SEBI launches user-friendly beta settlement calculator. We know that SEBI governs the market infrastructure institutions like stockbrokers, stock exchanges, and then clearing corporation, all this, right? So if anyone among them fails to follow the rules and regulations laid by the SEBI, then they will have to face a probe by the SEBI, right? So in case if they don't want to get involved in this probe, then they can go and settle via this settlement calculator. So if you see, as part of the settlement mechanism, an alleged wrongdoer, so a person who has failed to follow the rules and regulations framed by SEBI, they can settle a pending matter. So instead of going for a probe or a trial, you can go and settle the pending matter amicably. That is, you can go and pay the settlement charges. So in order to calculate the settlement charges, this settlement calculator has been introduced. And also in the SEBI page, if you see, there is also a video on how to use this settlement calculator. Everything has been provided in detail in this video in the SEBI page. So an alleged wrongdoer can settle a pending matter with SEBI without admission or denial of guilt by paying the settlement charges. So you just have to go to this calculator, give all the details and get how much is the charge that you have to pay, and you can pay the charges, and then you don't have to go through the trial or the probe. Now, if you are a first time applicant, then it is 3 lakh. That is first time that you have done this against the rules and regulation, then the amount will be minimum 3 lakhs. Others, it will be 7 lakhs. That is, you have done this for a second time or third time, then the minimum amount will be rupees 7 lakh. Universal Sompo launches Insure Today for a Safe Tomorrow campaign to promote insurance awareness. So this has been launched along with Maruti Suzuki Insurance Broking Private Limited. That is Insure Today for a Safe Tomorrow. So this is a part of an initiative called Insurance for All by 2047. This is an ambition by IRDAI that it wants to provide insurance for all by 2047, and for that this initiative has been taken. So if you see Universal Sompo General Insurance, it is a joint venture of Indian Bank, Indian Overseas Bank, Karnataka Bank Limited, Dabar Investments and Sompo Japan Insurance Inc. Next news is that RBI has approved Zurich Insurance to acquire 70% of the Kotak General for 5,560 crores. So if you see Zurich Insurance Company, it is a wholly owned subsidiary of Zurich Insurance Group Limited, which is headquartered in Switzerland. So on February 2024, the Competition Commission of India has granted approval for it to acquire 70% of Kotak General, and now RBI has also given its approval. And now, so Zurich Insurance will acquire 70% of Kotak General for 5,560 crores. The MD and CEO of Kotak General Insurance is Suresh Agarwal. It is headquartered in Mumbai, Maharashtra. PNB approved the diluting 10% stake in Canara HSBC Life Insurance Company. So if you see, at present, the Canara Bank has 51% stake in this HSBC Insurance, and Canara Bank has 51% stake in this Canara HSBC Life Insurance, and HSBC Insurance holds a stake of 26%. So when there was a merge of the Oriental Bank of Commerce with the PNB in 2020, then PNB had acquired 23% stake in this insurance company. And out of this 23%, it has planned to dilute 10% of its stake in this Canara HSBC Life Insurance Company. So if you see, Canara HSBC Life Insurance Company, the MD and CEO is Anuj Mathur. It is headquartered in Gurugram and it was established in 2008. The next news is NIPL partners with Central Bank of Peru to introduce UPI payment system. NIPL, that is NPCI International Payment Limited, so it is the international arm of NPCI, has signed an agreement with the Central Reserve Bank of Peru to introduce UPI interface in the Peru country. It is the first South American nation to adopt UPI technology, and it also marks NIPL's second partnership with a central bank to deploy the UPI system. So this collaborative approach will help promote the innovation and resilience in the Peruvian payment ecosystem. NIPL CEO is Ritesh Shukla, and the Prime Minister of Peru is Gustavo Lino. The capital is Lima and the currency is Peruvian sol. Next is the NSE Indices launched India's first EV index called Nifty EV and New Age Automotive Index. So this index will track the performance of countries, of the companies which are part of the EV sector, and also if they are engaged in the new age automotive vehicles. So these two are the criteria: either they will be part of the EV sector or engaged in the new age automotive vehicles. The base date is taken as 2nd April 2018 and the base value is 1000. So this index will be reconstituted semi-annually and rebalanced on a quarterly basis. So if you see, at current there are 17 thematic indices in the NSE, which includes Nifty Commodities, Nifty India Consumption, Nifty CPSE, and as of 31st March 2024, it owns around 350 indices under the Nifty brand, which includes the Nifty 50. So including Nifty 50, around 350 indices are managed by the Nifty. The chairman is Milind Barve, MD is Mukesh Agarwal, and it was established in 1998. Netherlands becomes the India's third largest export destination in financial year 24 after US and UAE. So the maximum export to from India has been to US first, and then UAE, and the third is Netherlands. So this data has been released by Ministry of Commerce and Industry. So as per Ministry of Commerce and Industry, Netherlands has emerged as the third largest export destination after US and UAE. So the exports to Netherlands has increased by 3.5%, that is to 22.36 billion from 21.61 billion in financial year 23. So the main trade surplus has been due to the shipment of petroleum products, electrical goods, chemicals and pharmaceuticals. So it is petroleum products, electric goods, chemicals and pharmaceuticals. These four main products are the reason for this trade surplus. And India's trade surplus with the Netherlands has increased to 17.4 billion in financial year 24 from 13 billion in financial year 23. So trade surplus means that we export more than we import from that country. So that is why it is called as trade surplus, and this has increased from 13 billion to 17.4 billion. So during financial year 24, India received about 5 billion in foreign direct investment from the Netherlands, and in the previous year it was just 2.6. So it has almost doubled from 2.6 billion to 5 billion. Netherlands, it has emerged as a European hub because it has a very good connectivity through roads, railways and waterways. If you see in financial year 22, the Netherlands was the 5th largest destination for Indian exports, and in financial year 21, it was the 9th largest. But current in financial year 24, now it is the 3rd largest after US and UAE. So apart from that, there are over 200 Dutch companies present in India, including Philips, DSM, KLM Royal. So these many companies are present in India, and also over 200 Indian companies are present in the Netherlands, including TCS, Hindustan Computer Limited, Wipro Limited. So these companies are present in Netherlands. The Prime Minister is Mark Rutte, the capital is Amsterdam, and the currency is Euro. Next news. Morgan Stanley's 2024 Global Economic Mid-Year Outlook forecast. So it has released a Global Economic Mid-Year Outlook. In that, it has forecasted that India would grow at 6.8% in 2024 and 6.5% in 2025. And apart from that, it has also predicted that the inflation is expected to stay within the level that is 2 to 6%. And the main reason for this growth is that global offshoring, digitization and energy transition is the main reason for this India's robust growth. So India now currently stands at 5th globally in terms of GDP. The first is USA, second China, third Germany and fourth Japan, and 5th place goes to India with an estimated value of around $3.7 trillion. It has also forecasted that the US growth, that is the Morgan Stanley, it has forecasted that the US would grow at 2.6% in 2024, 2.1% in 2025, and then it has forecasted that China would grow at 4.8% in 2024 and 4.5% in 2025. Along with that, Japan will grow at the rate of 3.3% in 2024, down from 5.7%. So in 2023, it had grown around 5.7%, but 2024, the growth is expected to be only at 3.3%. And also Morgan Stanley economists, they have anticipated the global growth. So it is expected to be 3.1% for both 2024 and 2025. The CEO is Edward Pick. It is headquartered in New York and it was founded in 1935. The next news is about the provisional estimate of the annual GDP for financial year 24 and also the quarterly estimate of the GDP for the fourth quarter of the financial year 24. Here. So the real GDP is that 173.82 lakh crore for financial year 24. When compared to the first revised estimate of financial year 23, it was 160 lakh crore. So from 160 lakh crore, it has increased to 173 lakh crore in real GDP. So the difference between real GDP and nominal GDP is that real GDP includes the inflation part. So it considers the inflation part and nominal GDP does not consider the inflation part. So nominal GDP will mostly be higher than real GDP. And if you see for real GDP is around 8.2% for financial year 24 and for financial year 23 it was 7%. And nominal GDP is 9.6%. As I said, it is mostly higher than the real GDP. And financial year 23, the nominal GDP was 14.2%. And nominal GDP for financial 24 was 295.36 lakh crore and financial 23 it was 269.5 lakh crore. Real GVA is 7.2% and in case of financial 23 it is 6.7%. Nominal GVA was 267.62 lakh crore and the nominal GVA for financial 23 is 246.59 lakh crore. I know this is a lot of data, but this is very important to remember the real GDP. Previously 160, now it is 173 lakh crore and the real GDP 8.2%, previously it was 7%. So for quarter 4 2024, the GDP was predicted as 7.8% and the GVA was 6.3%. If you see the real GDP projection for financial year 24 for first estimate and second estimate. So this final estimate was at 8.2%, which is much higher than the first and the second estimate, which was 7.3% and 7.6%. And the per capita national income has also increased from 99,404 to 1,06,744 in financial year 24. So if you see, there's a wide gap between GVA and GDP, and it is mainly due to increase in net taxes. You all know that the formula of GDP is GVA minus subsidies plus tax. So if this tax part is greater, then the GDP will be greater than GVA. So the main difference between GDP and GVA is due to the increase in the tax part. Next, the net taxes registered a growth of 22.2% in Q4 as against the 31.2% in Q3 FY24. And similarly for Q4 financial year 23, it was 7.7%. The secondary sector, which includes manufacturing, electricity and construction, they have increased 9.7% year-on-year basis. The primary sector like agriculture, they have increased just 2.1% on a year-on-year basis. And tertiary sector like trade, transport, it has increased around 7.6% annual basis. So if you see the Ministry of State for Ministry of Statistics and Program Implementation, it is Rao Inderjit Singh. Next, SEBI has issued guidelines to relax the timelines for FPIs to make material event disclosure. Now, we just saw in the previous few slides that there are two investments made by the foreigners. One is FDI and one is FPI. In this FPI, it is mostly the NRIs or the abroad people. They invest in FPI, and this money is again invested in the India's equity channel. So what the SEBI guideline says that if at all, if there is any change, material change of this FPI, then it has stated the timeline within which it has to inform the depository participants. So now this timeline was quite strict, and now SEBI has relaxed this timelines for the disclosure of the material change by the FPI to the depository participant. This is what this news is about. So if you see, SEBI has categorized the material changes by the FPI into two groups. So material changes means when there is any change in ownership, or if there is any change in, like if from regulated FPI, if it has changed into non-regulated. So if there are any changes, like these changes are called as material changes, and there are two types. One is type 1 and another one is type 2. So if you see, type 1 changes are these things. If there is any change in jurisdiction, change on account of acquisition or merger, and also if there is any change in the legal form, that is from if it is changed from corporate to trust. Apart from that, also if the breach of prescribed threshold limit for aggregate contribution of, so there will be a limit in an FPI, how much percent can be contributed by NRI, OCI. So if there is any breach in that limit, so that is also considered as a type 1 material change. So within how many days should you inform this type 1 material change, and within how many days can you inform the type 2. So all other changes other than the changes mentioned in this type 1 will come under type 2. So any changes which are not mentioned in this type 1 will come under type 2. So if you see, type 1 changes will include all the changes that I have mentioned now, and these changes might require to seek fresh registration, or this might affect any privileges or exemptions available to such foreign investors. So if there are any type 1 changes, then the FPI have to inform the depository participant within 7 days. If there is any type 1 changes, they have to inform within 7 days, and they have to provide the supported documents within 30 days. And if there is any type 2 changes, then they have to inform within 30 days along with any supporting documents if there are any. So if you see type 1, 7 days you have to inform within 7 days, and within 30 days, this is for type 1. Within 30 days you have to provide any documents, any supporting documents, and in type 2 you have to inform and as well as produce the supporting documents within 30 days. So the designated depository participants, they are required to examine the material changes. So whatever is being produced by the FPI, these DPs will examine the changes, and if at all, if okay, these changes, you don't have to require any new registration, you can continue as such. All these decisions will be taken by this depository participants. So if at all any new registration is required, then they will tell the FPI, and the FPI have to follow that. If there is any delay, suppose FPI has not reported within 30 days or within 7 days to the depository participants, then this depository participants should tell the SEBI as soon as possible, but not more than 2 working days. So when there is a delay in intimation of the material change by the FPI to the DDP, then the DDP as soon as possible, but not later than 2 working days, inform all such cases to SEBI to take the appropriate action. So just 2 things has to be remembered. One is that 7 days, another is that 30 days for type 1. Type 2, it is only 30 days, and then you have to, DP have to inform SEBI if FPI has not informed DP on time, and the time taken by DP should not be more than 2 working days. Let's have a quick recap of just RBI annual report. So this report is published as per the section 53 clause 2 of the RBI Act, and as per this report, the income of the RBI has increased by 17% to 2.75 lakh crore, and the expenses has reduced by 56%. The balance sheet has expanded by 11% to 70 lakh crore. And what else have we learned? And also the penalty levied by the RBI, it has doubled to 86 crores. And the sovereign gold bond that has been purchased in financial year 24 has been 27,000 crore. And a number of the counterfeit, that is the fake notes, it has increased from 10,000 pieces in the previous financial year to 17,000 pieces. And also the number of fraud cases reported, it has also increased from 13,000 to 36,000 this financial year. And the 500 rupee note in circulation, it is around 86.5% in term of value. And what else? SRO for financial tech, for fintech, the minimum net worth should be 2 crores. The shareholding should not be greater than 10%. What else did we learn? So 500, 86.5, 10,000 pieces. So penalty. So it is section 54, 2.75 lakh crore, 56% decrease in the expenditure. Balance sheet increased by 11% to 70 lakh crore. Sovereign gold bond 27,000 crore, and penalty 86 crores, and then counterfeit note from 10,000 pieces to 17,000 pieces, fraud cases from 13,000 to 36,000 increase, and then 500 rupee note in circulation is around 86.5% in terms of value, and SRO, if you see, it is 2 crore net worth and 10%, and the amount of currency in circulation as on 31st March 2024 is around 34.8 trillion. So these are the important takeaways from the RBI annual report. Thank you for watching the session. I hope you had enjoyed it. We're also available in Telegram under the name AffairsCloud_official. We also have an Instagram handle. Apart from this, you can contact us directly on 9677333862 regarding any courses that we offer, or regarding any payment issues. You can contact on directly on this number. Thank you.